But what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is solar and renewable energy, kind of where we are in the residential market. And really, I'm happy that I was able to hear the previous speakers, right, tying back together where the future is, but how consumers are experiencing it today. So my husband, Sean Seitz, he's a mechanical engineer. So he was like, okay, and I am not engineering. I am, as we found, I'm the business owner. I'm the visionary. I'm the person that listens to what engineers tell me. And then I'm the one that tries to figure out how we can make a business case for it and how we can deploy it to customers. So I currently serve also, which was my data I was going to give you. I currently serve on the National Solar Energy Industry Board. So it's the largest lobbying effort of solar energy here in America. So solar energy is definitely here to stay. I'm staying mad that I don't have my gigawatts of energy on the resi side that is projected to come onto the grid. But it's a lot, gigawatts. And so now where we at are now is we were really in a tenuous situation. So American Solar and Roofing, we were the first to grid tie solar into the grid, into the city of Phoenix, just in 2001. So we have seen over the evolution from going from an off-grid situation where you could never grid tie, there was never any design elements. How does the inverter, right, convert energy to be able to use it into our AC to DC land, or now DC to AC land? How does that conversion happen? How are consumers using it, and what are they wanting? And so over that period of time, we worked with manufacturers, right, to convert from grid or from off-grid to on-grid situations. Then what we're always talking about, right, is the usability for you and how is your home consuming the energy. So I was going to bring a solar panel here today, but I'm sure you've all touched it. But if not, it's about my size, which is why I didn't bring it. I have a small one in the back, but it's a metal frame, tempered glass in the front that can take hail at 75 miles an hour, plus a back sheet. And then the solar cells are soldered together and pushed together into a flat sheet that then is put together with the metal frame. Many people then want to talk to me about the roof integrated product. We tried the roof integrator, the Tesla roof, right? That some people have heard about, or Elon will tweet about. Some people are thinking about that. How does that work on the residential side? It doesn't. It's not cost competitive at this point, just to that normal solar panel that we've all seen that was once on the White House in the 80s, right? And I think back on there. So it's the building integrated product, not where it needs to be. So that is the basics of what we've seen over the course of the time. And then now I want to move a little bit into experiences that we are now hearing. Again, we're hearing about fusion, we're hearing about battery storage. So I just wanted to talk a little bit now about what residents are experiencing on the ground level that we need engineers to help us solve, right? So my personal experience, let's start with storage. My personal experience with storage is I've tried 3 different makers on my personal home. I ended up with one. They said that it was going to be able to work in I didn't put it in temperature control because code does not allow you to put it into your home, or at least not in Arizona. So it's a lithium-ion battery manufactured by a very large global company that make other home products, dishwashers, washing machines, TVs. Feels like a credible thing. They partnered up, as our previous panelists were talking about, they partnered up with the right inverter technology. So, now I'm having this conversation with how utilities are designing rates is I have to be able to partner with that inverter. So it's not only the hardware that matters. It's not only the components within the battery that matters, but it's also that software that matters, which again is really where we need the engineers. So now I'm like, okay, but now I need this technology to be dynamic. It can't be static. I need to say, I want to call on this battery when I need this battery. When I don't need the battery, I don't want a full depth of discharge today, right? Again, as engineers, you know, I don't want to keep calling on a component if I don't need to call on it. So we were having to be in a full design conversation of how are we calling on it? How are rates designed? How am I selling it back to the grid if I want to? How am I making an ROI on it? That's just what the consumer is thinking about. And then that is what somebody like our organization has to figure out to be able to have the conversation between the engineers who are designing the software to call on, to be able to then have our technicians go out and put it into action. So we went through all of that. And again, complicated, not easy. The only experience we had was doing it in off-grid, so we were converting it into on-grid. So then it was on our home, and as a visionary, I thought it was going to be a little bit more complex and designed, and this was only 8 to 9 years ago. But what I quickly found again is the software just wasn't designed. So we're only a decade into real batteries being able to be really used by real humans and the real population in your neighborhoods. Yet there are companies that are, being publicly traded and claiming that you can put it in your home today and it's going to be fine. But we're only been testing this for 10 years. So my first iteration, I realized that the software component is not where it needs to be. So then all of a sudden I'm like, oh wait, am I going to have to build this software database that's going to be able to pull data and then trigger my battery to function? So those were all the conversations. I haven't gotten to the worst part yet. So once we figured all that out, we were, like I said, 3 iterations in when I finally landed on one that sounded like that they had the technology on the chemical component, right? That was going to be able to sustain Arizona heat. I'm from here. And then also be able to be called on correctly when I wanted to use it. So I finally get one in. I think it worked pretty okay. Commissioning it was terrible. Commissioning was terrible. It was okay, but turning it on, terrible. Getting the software designed, terrible. Working with the people in the field, terrible. Engineers, terrible. Sorry, they tried, but terrible. The whole thing didn't work. But finally, right, because again, my husband, engineer, really wants it to work. And so he's like sweating in the outside July trying to commission this thing, and it's not. So we finally get it to work. We call on it. It works. We're like, oh my gosh, if it works, it's amazing. And then 2 seasons go through and we start seeing it degrade and have degradation that was outside of what was predicted. And so then we go outside and we start seeing probably, I don't know, February, we start seeing of 2 years later. So it's 2 summers, almost 3 years in, we start seeing the swelling. So now I have a lithium ion battery on the opposite side of my primary bedroom wall, which is right next to my children's room, that's swelling. And I leave it up to my husband. I'll go back over here. I leave it up to my husband because I'm running a company and he has some extra time on his hands to call the manufacturer and say, hey, it's not working out. We need to get a return on this and get a new product. They're not responsive, not responsive, not responsive, not responsive, not responsive, not responsive, not responsive. But he's nice and he's kind because y'all are nice and kind. And probably him being nice and kind for about 4 months. And then my eyes popped open in July at midnight. And I was like, my house could burn down. Like, this is a really real threat in which I don't know, was a little too tired, a little too exhausted as a mom running a company. Didn't really realize 4 months ago that I just, at midnight, hey, I think this is bad. Like, I think we need to get this off the wall. But what do we know about lithium ion? What we know is that it's just, it's highly volatile. Where am I going to put it? Am I going to put it in the middle of my backyard where the elements are there? Is it going to monsoon rain? Because it's July, August at this point. So now lithium ion and water doesn't play well, right? What else am I going to do? Am I going to bring it back to my warehouse and store it? Oh, cool. So then my whole building blows up and I don't have a company anymore. Those are very real conversations that is really happening, and you don't really know until you really wake up at midnight and be like, holy crap, right? So those are, and so to conclude that story, it took me, as I mentioned before, I serve on the National SIA board. It took me literally going online on email and saying, do you not know who the I am? Like, what? Like, I serve on a national board. Like, I am hanging out with these manufacturers. I have a voice. I have a platform. Why aren't you getting this off my wall? This is obscene. It's crazy. And it still took me, with that tone and with this energy, another month and a half to get it off my wall. And that's when two dudes in an unmarked van showed up and said, do you even know if it's off? Like, how do we even know if it's off? How do we decommission this? How do we get it off our wall? And I just claimed ignorance. And then I turned on my video camera and I was like, oh, I'm just stupid. I don't know. Because I had to watch this play out. Because I had to be able to stand before my industry and say, this is what's going on for customers. So again, and so they end up taking it off. One guy was like, I've never done this before. And then they put it in an unmarked van. It's swelling. Again, what do we know about lithium ion batteries? We know there's stranded energy. We know that at any moment that could have ignited, and it's in an unmarked van, not even a steel container that would have at least slowed the burn or prevented an explosion or a catastrophe going through the Deck Park tunnel of the city of Phoenix, right? Like, the whole experience was terrible, to where then my industry is like, why are you hating on solar? I'm like, or batteries. I'm like, none of you have put, I feel like the entire solar industry or battery industry is selling you batteries and they don't have it on their own home. That's my claim at this point. Because I'm like, do you have it on your home? Well, no. Okay. Well, until you go through what I go through, you won't speak my language. So that's one experience, again, that I need engineering help, and which is why I'm appreciative of being here. Another experience is the Nest. The Nest is supposed to be great. It's supposed to be bidirectional. It's supposed to be able to call on you. It's supposed to be able to understand how you do it. It's great for Google, talking about it, and Alexa, and calling it all up. I went on vacation. I came home. Apparently, the Nest lost interconnection to my router, which then made it not charge, which then now I'm in July in my home. And again, my husband is sweating trying to make this component work, right? So it's these conversations that I'm appreciative of having with all of us who probably understand it, of saying, how is the Nest, or how is the battery, how are we bringing that information truly forward into being able to make it work? Because the tweets and the publicly traded companies want consumers to believe that these interconnected homes are here, let's do it, we can call on it. But we're so early in these conversations that we need more understanding and more real use conversations. Less non-disclosure agreements. Word on the street is most people are signing non-disclosure agreements if they're doing massive battery experiments. And so when I'm talking to my utility partners and they're testing batteries through RFPs, again, spoken about in the last session, I'm not able to get real data because so many people are under non-disclosures. So now I'm not even, as a whistleblower in our industry, able to say, how is it really working? How are customers really experiencing these programs if the battery, if the utilities are putting together RFPs and then we're testing it in folks' homes, and then these publicly traded companies are making all of this money, but we're not able to get real world data to see that it's actually functioning for our customers. So again, those are the real life things that are happening within RFP programs through utilities, or with customers who are sold through a tweet that this technology works. Another thing that I'm always considering too, again, needing everyone's help because I'm just the visionary, is cybersecurity. We have had the benefit of utilities really understanding how to protect the grid when they bring one-way energy into our grid and we consume it. But now when we have companies that are doing bring your own device, they're interconnecting to the grid and you're giving up all your information, or they're able to access the grid in a two-way conversation. What does that look like? I'm knowledgeable enough. There was an excellent book, This Is How They Tell Me the World Ends, on cybersecurity and zero-day viruses. So I've paid enough attention to cybersecurity to know we're probably all screwed anyways. But you know, what happens just with just the kids that are playing around? Can they access the bring your own device technology that can cause issues in those batteries, that can cause issues in those inverters? So cybersecurity is another component as we're talking about a two-way virtual power plant, small fusion, all of these entities coming onto the grid. It is another thing that we, at least for me, I think about I'm really excited about the future. I'm a visionary and I want to sell all of those products to all of my customers. But then I've educated myself way too much from the engineer's mind of all of the things that we have to be putting into place to be able to get there. So it's that balance that we're really trying to work on. And so let me see, I'm trying to think on the thing on my printer if there was any other thing that I wanted to connect. So terrible. I don't believe so. I think, again, what I wanted to, my point in today's conversation really was bringing it all the way down. Oh, no, excuse me. I am so sorry. I'm an extreme planner. I can't believe it. The third thing that I wanted to bring into this conversation is who's going to be the player. So it was a really interesting, again, when I'm thinking about engineers and I'm thinking about brains and where you're going and how to help renewable energy and how to help us scale in the solar, wind, battery, VPP, fusion, all of that, right? Is who's going to be the player. So I had the opportunity, and this was really interesting, and I'm now researching it more and more. I had the opportunity to hang out with the previous COO of a large utility, retired. And I said, so the previous Solar Cities or Tesla, SunPower, all those large companies that sell solar, right? I was like, who, are they your competition? Like, who is a utilities competition for real? And he's like, no. That's not it. It's Google and it's Apple. And the reason why it's Google and Apple is because Google and Apple have an understanding of how consumers use their home. They have an understanding of how you buy things. They have an understanding if you're coming and going. They have an understanding of how hot you like it, right? They have a software and an understanding of consumer behaviors that all they have to do is retweak it in another way to understand how your consumer behavior in a small microcosm, which is your home, right, then affecting the microgrid or the one transmission line that you're on or the one feeder that you're on to then go bigger and bigger. I mean, he literally was like, oh no, it's poles and lines? That's easy. It's how do you use a VPP to reduce the turbulence, right? To lower the brownouts, to lower the blackouts. And the only people at this point, and at least in his mind, was Google and Apple. So all of those things I found interesting to bring to you today. So again, I appreciate your time and giving me that time and all the work that you do, because everything that y'all do helps me be able to actually take a product, deploy it, and make it real life and functioning for my consumer.